And given everything that's going on in the country and everything that's going on in the state of Indiana, to be sure, we felt we should try to find somebody who was trying to make a political difference in the ways that Debs did. Don't forget that at one time, Debs did serve in the Assembly of the state of Indiana as an elected official, and could have easily chosen that path to become about as high-ranking an elected official within the structure as you could ever imagine that any could be, with his powers of speech and persuasion and so forth. And so we were looking for someone who could embody that, who could demonstrate the need in 2016 to campaign on a strong progressive platform. I didn't know Bill Breeden, hadn't had the opportunity to meet him until today. But, we've got this information highway called the internet. So I went on his website, and I encourage you to do the same. You're going to find a platform that Eugene Debs indeed would have been proud to support. You're also going to find a life story of somebody who's been down, literally and figuratively, a lot of highway, both as a Teamster truck driver, as a minister, as a political activist, and someone who, like most of us in this room, has learned everything the really hard way by doing it and changing and understanding what needs to be done. So he's a candidate now for the Indiana State Representative from the 46th District, and I know he's given it one hell of a fight there. And Bill, I'm just really proud to meet you at last and give you the opportunity to present the Debs Award for 2016 to our award winner, Bill Breeden.
Should have saved that music to last. I tell you, that's hard. Just a quick little story. When I was about 13 years old or 14, I don't remember exactly, and thought I knew everything, I was at the Merrifield Station down in Odin, Indiana, where I grew up. It was a sundown town, by the way. No blacks were ever there. There were no blacks there before sundown that I ever remember. And I remember a preacher in my church telling me after the Selma March that Martin Luther King Jr., pardon the language, but this is the way it was told, was nothing but a communist nigger agitator. Years later, after finding his dissertation, I decided that's what I wanted to be. But this was years before that, and I was young, and I was down at Pete Merrifield Station watching all the boys work on a 57 Chevy 320 or 280, what was it? 383 or something like that. 283, I saw one today. 283, and they were all bent over there, and they were talking about, my brother was already in the sea, on a Coral Sea aircraft carrier off of Vietnam, and just a little echo of that out there. People were talking, and we were all out there talking. I was listening to big boys cuss, and I was thinking about I'd like to smoke a cigarette, but I knew I'd get in trouble. And all those things that big boys did, and Pete Merrifield, the owner of the station, come out there, and them boys, some of them boys supposed to be working, and he come out there, "You're just a bunch of lazy punk boys," he said. He said, "What this country needs is another good war." He didn't say it exactly like that. I had a few cuss words in there. I thought that was really cool. My brother was in the military. I had 2 brothers at that time, and 3 would be soon in the military. I'd watch jets fly over our home down by the Crane Naval Base, and I dreamed of flying one of those, and I love war stories. So I got home that night, and we sit down at the family table. My mom and dad had 3 sets of twins and 3 singles, and there was still about 4 or 5 of us home at that time, and sit around the family dinner, and I wanted to be real tough, and they were talking about Kennedy and other things going on, and I said, "Well, what this country needs is another good war." And my mother looked at me, and she rarely raised her voice to me. She rarely spoke sternly. She looked at me and she said, "Billy, there's no such thing as a good war." And I slammed my plate and left the table because I didn't want to see her. I didn't want her to see me cry. And I went upstairs in the old farmhouse and hit the bed. Later that night, Mom come up, she said, I want to tell you why I told you that. Back at the end of World War II, my younger brother, who I'd raised because of my mother had brain fever, and I was the mother of our family. My younger brother went to war. And I got a letter right at the end of that war from him. He was in Europe, and he said he'd be home in a few weeks. And we waited. And the next letter I got was from the Department of Defense. And on the way back, your Uncle Carl, after whom your brother is named, was riding a ship back home. And they met another ship going back to retrieve wounded soldiers in Europe. And he volunteered to go back. And that ship hit a mine and sunk, and Carl never came home. That's why I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a good war. It took a while for those words to really sink into me. I had to go through a lot. I was a teenage revival preacher, and I wasn't here in the 60s, so I remembered them. You know, I'm a latter-day hippie, I guess. But across the years, I met the likes of Phil Berrigan, and the last time I was at this dinner was Howard Zinn. A friend of mine was here. I met people who began to change my thinking, and they began to remind me of my mother's words when I was a young boy. So when someone called, I think it was Ben Kite, called me not long ago and said, would you introduce Cindy Sheehan? And I tell you, I'm running for public office, and I don't know what people in Indianapolis think about the political wisdom of standing beside a revolutionary when you're running for public office in Indiana. You know, I don't know about that. They might say, Breeden ain't got much political sense. But I tell you, I remember when the towers fell. I was standing in my little 3-room cabin in Owen County. I was reading the Herald Times. And on page 6, the national news there, the headline said, U.S. airstrikes kill 6 shepherds in Iraq. And then some friend of mine called and said, turn on your TV, some nut just flew into the World Trade Center, and I was mesmerized for the hours and hours. And when I saw those towers fall, the words of Hosea went through my mind. He said, sow for yourself justice and reap the fruits of steadfast love. But then he went on to say, because you've trusted in the size of your chariots, the multitude of your warriors, therefore the tumult of war shall be upon your people, and all of its fortresses shall be destroyed. That's what I want to say to those politicians that love to talk about the Bible, but they can't quote a verse. That's what I want to say to those people who wave the flag and carry the cross and then talk about war as if it's a holy thing. And so when Bush decided to make what should have been prosecuted as a crime, well, take that back, when President Cheney decided take what should have been prosecuted as a crime and present it as an opportunity for our big weapons of mass destruction, our military industrial complex that drives our economy to go to work again. I was amazed not long after that when I turned on the TV and saw Cindy Sheehan at Bush's ranch. And I thought to myself, here is Julia Ward Howe again. Here is Sojourner Truth again. Here is Mother Jones again. Here is a woman like my mother who understood all of a sudden that there ain't no damn thing as a good war. And if we're not willing, if the Democratic Party is not understanding that the world is changing, if the Democratic Party does not understand that the younger generation is catching on, we're going to go down in the dustbin of irrelevancy, just like the Republican Party's about to do. And now one more word from Eugene V. Debs, which I think, especially for the younger generation and for this generation and for the coming generations, was so prescient. Private appropriation of the earth's surface, the natural resources, and the means of life is nothing less a crime than a crime against humanity. But the comparative few who are beneficiaries of this iniquitous social arrangement, far from being viewed as criminals meriting punishment, are the exalted rulers of society, and the people they exploit gladly render them homage and obeisance. What I want to say to you today is I am honored It's not often that I can stand before an august community like this and introduce a person with a longer rap sheet than I have. You know, it's not often. I started reading a rap sheet. My God, this woman's been in jail more than I have by twice. At least I kept having to go back to the top and count again how many times she's been arrested. Well, I'm honored to say that Cindy Sheehan inspired me in the dark days of the Iraq War. She said to me that there are people on this planet who care about the earth. This music tonight said to me there are people on this planet who care about the earth. Your presence here tonight says there are people here in Indiana, in the state where on December 28th, 1921, when Debs came home from prison after almost 4 years, 50,000 people met him at the train station in Terre Haute, Indiana. That was before the interstate. And I tell you, I've told that story in Clay City. I've told that story in Brazil. I've told that story in Spencer. I've told that story across District 46. People are amazed because we don't teach our Indiana history. We teach what they want. We want them to think in our schools. There's another war going on in Indiana right now. It's a war against teachers. It's a war against women. It's a war against the working class. You are the people to resist. And I thank you for being here. And I thank Cindy Sheehan for reminding me of the power of women's voice in a world where we men have gotten it wrong so long. I got it wrong on the way tonight. On the way over here tonight, Glenda said, you got to stop and get some gas. I said, I can make it to 59 over here. I made it a mile short of 59 and ran out of gas. So I don't know. I'm really honored, Cindy, to be here with you. I've wanted to see you. I wanted to meet you for a long time. You are a hero of mine, and you're another one of those people in the higher echelon, in my opinion, of resistance, of warriors for peace, of people who love life so much that they are unwilling anymore to give their children or their grandchildren to the machinery of death. And so I want to present you with this award. It says Eugene V. Debs Award presented to Cindy Sheehan, anti-war activist. I'm honored to do it. I love this woman. I only met her a half hour ago or an hour ago, however it's been. But she's an honorary Hoosier, in my opinion, and I'm honored to be here with her.
Is it my turn? It's my turn to talk. Thank you. I don't know when I was contacted about receiving this award, but first of all, I'd just like to thank everybody up here for their contributions tonight, for the program, for the foundation, for giving me this award this year, and for the hospitality that I've been shown. I've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I didn't. I don't know if that's so good. Some people who've won it have been terrible people. Yeah. I mean, honestly, right? The person who put Debs in prison, Woodrow Wilson, got a Nobel Peace Prize for starting a terrible war and then ending it. I don't even know why he got, League of Nations, I guess. But anyway, didn't make up for what he did, by the way. So anyway, I've gotten awards all over the world, and this one means so much to me. Maybe means the most out of all the other awards that I've received because of the person it's named after. And his legacy is phenomenal. And this foundation to promote that legacy is so important. I majored in U.S. history in California. I went to some school you may have heard of called UCLA. But, it seems like you major in U.S. history, all they want to teach you is about wars and presidents, right? If you ever majored in history. But you just have to take my word for it if you didn't. And so, but Debs was one of the people we learned about. Not his complete legacy, more of like an outsider. Yeah. So we had some outsiders in our history, like Mother Jones, like Debs, like Dorothy Day, and all those people, all those wonderful agitators. We were taught that they were important for their time, but really not significant in the big scheme of things. But we had a unit like on Pullman strike, Haymarket. They call it a Haymarket riot, yeah, right? Yeah. But I've always found the people who come dressed for a riot are the police. There's one here. I want to make sure he wasn't in here. It's like, oh, are you throwing a riot tonight or something? Because you're dressed like you came for a riot. Not the guy here, of course, but. So anyway.
They're coming to get you.
Right? I'm surprised they let me cross the border with my rap sheet. So anyway, Debs, people have asked me before I came and when I'm here, do I see any similarities between myself and Eugene V. Debs and his work? And there are some similarities. I read his words and I love them because he didn't ever use weasel words. Yeah. He never used wishy-washy kind of talk. He called what things were. He called capitalism satanic, right? He never said, well, blah, 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 whatever, I'm leaving. He really used strong language. And a lot of people tell me, oh, Cindy, if you weren't so, truthful all the time about everything, you put people off. You're off-putting sometimes. But I am like Debs. We can't not speak the truth. It's impossible for us to use wishy-washy weasel words to describe things. And it may have put Debs and myself outside, but eventually people catch up. When I first started protesting the Iraq War, 60% of the people in this country agreed with it. They still thought it was a good war. And so I got a lot of hate, a lot of death threats, as I did when I came to Terre Haute last time. A lot of people, most people were opposed to what I was doing, but eventually everybody caught up with me, right? And so I think there has to be people like Eugene V. Debs, and I'm going to say people like Cindy L. Sheehan, who are willing to go out front, who are willing to take the heat, who are willing to take the hatred and the hits and let people catch up to us, who are willing to use strong language in our writings and in our speeches to make people think. Say, oh my God, Cindy said this or that. That was kind of harsh. But then people think about it. And another way that we're similar, of course, is that we're both of us very anti-war. And we've talked a lot about the Canton, Ohio speech. And we've talked, but mostly about his labor legacy, his unionism legacy. But what attracted me to him in the first place, besides learning about him when I was in college, was that he knew if he went there and spoke out against Wilson's war, there's a good chance he would go to prison.
Yeah.
But he did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. Right? He didn't back down. And when my son was killed in Iraq, I became very, very, very conflicted. I became very ashamed of myself that I ever paid taxes to this government. I funded my son's murder. And I thought, I can never, ever again pay taxes to this government. I can't fund the murder of innocent people anymore. They're not going to get one penny from me to murder one more person. And people say, oh, Cindy, you know, the IRS, they're so mean. They might be those people you were talking about in your song. The IRS, they'll come after you. And I said, I don't care. I would rather be in prison than to pay for it. I'm really tired too. One more person's death. And you have to come to that. You have to know that I've been told if I get arrested one more time, I'll go to prison. Cindy, if you cross this line, you'll go to prison. Does that stop me from crossing the line? Does that stop me from getting arrested? No, because it's the right thing to do. And we have grown so comfortable. Debs' activism probably shortened his life by many years. I've only been in jail for the longest 3 days. And you know, for a year after that, I was having problems with my joints because you have to sleep on a cold floor. So I can't imagine going to prison for years and how that shortens your life. But he was not just for the brothers in his own union. He was an internationalist. Yeah. He was in solidarity with the working class all over the world. Yeah. And he knew that he couldn't be comfortable when some people were uncomfortable. And we have gotten so comfortable that we don't want to even think that we want to sacrifice anything for our brothers and sisters in Iraq. You talked about the 7 wars. Iraq hasn't stopped. Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Somalia. There's so many places that the U.S. is bombing right now. And then there's 200 countries that we're occupying with our military. That's not okay for me. You know, so the IRS did come after me, but I won. It was so funny. The magistrate looked at me after our presentation about why I wasn't going to cooperate with the IRS. And he goes, you know what? That sounds like a real reasonable response to something that happened to you that was so unreasonable. So the IRS had to back off. So not very many people know that, but I'm really proud of that. That you can face up. You can face up to the den of thieves and be victorious. And then Eugene V. Debs also loved his family. His family was very important to him. And his brother was his lifelong comrade, assistant, you know, whatever, grip carrier. He calls them his grips. I had 2 grips. And so it's very important to me also. So one thing that I've heard, and I heard Bill say, is that we have to protect the earth. There are people fracking is destroying. There's 1.7 million fracking wells in this country, destroying the water, destroying the air. So as workers, we need jobs, right? Jobs are important. But as workers, we need to stand together and say, A crime against the planet is a crime against humanity. And we have to work together to figure out better ways of doing things that doesn't involve fracking. We need to stand as internationalists, as an anti-war revolutionary socialist. That's why I'm so proud of this. We need to stand with those nations at Standing Rock. We need to be in solidarity. We need to be in solidarity with them. And even the workers need to be in solidarity with them and say, let's figure out a better way. I have grandchildren, or many of you have grandchildren, children. We have to figure out a way to make this planet survivable for our children and our grandchildren. And I think that is our challenge, and I think it's one that Eugene V. Debs would have taken up. You know, it's always, so what would Eugene V. Debs do? WWEVDD. And I think this would have been because of the international solidarity. Unions are great, and I am pro-worker, pro-union, but we need to be pro-everybody, because not everybody belongs to a union. In fact, just a small percentage of people in this country belong to a union. We have to say what's good for the United States is not necessarily good for the rest of the world. And we have to be willing to lower our standards to make the rest of the world healthier. Do you agree? Do you agree? You know, like was mentioned, a lot of Debs's vision came true, but it's dissipating. It came true during the 50s, 60s, after World War II, at the expense of the rest of the world, right? We were prosperous at the expense of the rest of the world. So solidarity with every worker in the world is something that Eugene Debs worked for, is something we should work for. Not where is our bigger piece of the pie, but how can that pie be divided evenly with the rest of the world? So thank you for this award. I'm truly, truly honored. I'm truly honored to be here with you. I went to the Debs house today. I said that was for an anti-war revolutionary socialist. That is Mecca.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was on holy ground.
Yeah.
It really is something very special. And thank you and the foundation for saving that for us. And let's work together to save the planet for our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you.